So that's very important. Digitalization is very important also, where we all have to speak the same language. That's very important. Okay. Another thing which is interesting is we noticed that all the air cargo that goes to Africa from the Far East goes all the way to Europe. And from Europe it goes. I'm talking about not the commercial cargo, it is the charter cargo. And that is like going in a triangle. So we are promoting South-South, meaning Far East, Dubai, Addis Ababa, Ghana, and Latin America. It is faster. We did a consignment from India. It saved 14 days, garment to Brazil, by using this route when we introduced it. Okay, and I don't know, like $14,000 of saving. So we have to come up with the new ways. We cannot just rely on the old ways. This is what everybody is doing. And with AI today, you can predict faster, you can add value, and you can save, both in cost and in time. And today, I tell you, for many of the exporters, it's not a matter of how much it costs. It's a matter of whether it arrives or not. I mean, we are faced today in a situation when you go to buy a car, we used to go and buy a car and drive it out. Today, you have to order a car. Even from China, it takes 6 months to order. So people are more worried about how fast you can deliver. And that's why we established many logistic parks around the world. In CIS country, in Uzbekistan, we're building a big one. In Kazakhstan, we have one. We have a big logistic park in Hong Kong. We have in China. We have in Japan. These are that allow us to really overcome these surprises. Because today, even the Far East, something interesting is that, look at Indonesia and all these countries. They cannot produce enough for their own consumption. The market is big. Indonesia is like 300 million. Okay, so more production facility had to be in India, where we are developing now. And India today is close to Africa, very close. You know, nothing can come from Far East faster than from India. So I am really very passionate about how much we can do. We're developing industrial parks today in Gujarat, in Kandra, where we will, once the port ready, we're going to have production facilities so that you can supply huge markets in Africa.
Leslie, let me turn to you. Look, there was a Western consensus that being a development partner to the countries that were emerging and developing was strategically good for them. It was not just altruism, but it was also strategically important to be a partner to countries as they were emerging in their development journeys. Do you believe that the developed world has now changed its mind, and it no longer needs to be or wants to be a partner to many of the countries that are seeking and aspiring for better lives? And are they really of the view that this now can be delegated to other countries, for example, Beijing, to do?
It's a big question. So first of all, I have to say I went from being puzzled and then depressed as we began with Dr. S. Jaishankar, who I have tremendous respect for, all the way to yourself, where I felt a bit of optimism. But I guess to answer your question directly, I mean, I think it's not a monolith, the developed world, in the same way that the so-called global South is not a monolith, nor is the developed world. It's not only not a monolith between European countries and Japan, Korea, name your countries in the United States. It's not a monolith within the United States. And let me start by saying that I just asked one of my colleagues, I'm now in Chicago at the Chicago Council for Global Affairs, and I asked one of my colleagues, where is the data on American public opinion towards foreign assistance? And 2/3 of Americans are not happy with cuts to foreign aid, and that includes around half of Republicans, which is higher than you would imagine if you were listening to the media or some of the headlines. So first of all, you've got to separate the public from national leaders, and particularly from the current U.S. administration, which has a very singular view, which isn't even representative of a number of people in its own parties. Secondly, I would say some of the reasons that are, driving the cuts that we've seen are a legitimate reaction. I don't think the cuts are the right way to go, but it's a reaction to a legitimate set of grievances that we know exist because there are profound distributional problems within the developed countries, and most especially the United States, that are nothing to do with the global South, primarily the fault of policies that were taken by those countries' own leaders, certainly in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. And we all in this room know the story, how that has unfolded. And the current policies, tax cuts, deregulation, attacking some benefits that are critical to low-income Americans, don't help resolve that problem. And so what we're seeing now is a sort of grabbing for where can we get revenue, tariffs as revenue, foreign aid cuts as revenue, you name it, revenue that needs to be generated because the governments aren't pursuing policies that are productive for the people that they claim to represent, which are many working class and low income Americans. So there's legitimate grievance. It has not translated into certainly Americans not wanting to be involved in the development challenges and solving them in a productive way. But it has led to a series of very pernicious effects. And so when I listened initially when I was listening to the kind of comments about disruption and uncertainty, I think the media is right on this. I think it's been phenomenally disruptive. It's been creating mass uncertainty for the rest of the world. It's also been creating a huge amount of uncertainty within the United States. I sat and listened to two members of Congress from Illinois, one Republican from a rural district, one Democrat, and the Republican member of Congress said on the record, how much pain can my people take? He was, of course, referring to farmers. The soybeans are very much on the minds, obviously, of many people in the middle of the United States. And, he gave a nod to, okay, yes, there are bilateral trade deficits, et cetera. But this needs to be resolved quickly. So the pain is being felt across the developing world. It's being felt within significant parts of the United States. So I guess bottom line is, I think a lot of Americans would like to be a solution, a productive solution to the problem of development. There isn't a highly concentrated, well-mobilized constituency for that. There's a lot of diffuse American interests in development, and they also don't know what the basic facts are.
So let me ask you the next question. The US is going to be the house to the next year of G20, right? And you've been part of the Indian G20 story. You've attended a few in other parts of the world as well. We had 3 or 4 developing countries house the G20. Is G20 going to be dramatically different next year? Does the story get a new twist when it reaches?
I mean, I don't think we know the answer to that question. Obviously, the Biden administration pushed very, very hard to get the G20 leadership against the interests or will of China, as I understand it. The Trump administration, as we know, has not been a big fan of the G20, certainly not in the current round for the reasons that everyone in this room knows well. I think that India provides a phenomenal example, a case study of a case that could be made to President Trump of why it would be very beneficial to the U.S. to lead the G20, to take it very seriously, to use it to build a domestic constituency for America's first leadership on the global stage. I think the case could be made. It could be delivered very concretely. I don't see that happening yet. But I think that if President Trump suddenly sees that it's not about going to South Africa or going somewhere else, it's about hosting with a lot of fanfare and setting an agenda, ideally cooperatively, that that there is some prospect for even a president who doesn't like multilateralism and doesn't like to kind of work with others in that sort of way. I think that one could make the case. I'd certainly like to be part of the effort to make the case. I think it would be tragic loss to lose the momentum of the last 4 years. And let's be realistic. The last 4 years have been very difficult because, the elephant in the room of geopolitics in the Middle East, between Russia and Ukraine, the global impacts of all of that have clearly gotten in the way of the G20 being, meeting the ambitions of what people have wanted it, wished it to be. Still, there has been tremendous momentum, and it's come out of the developing world.
Look, if you were to talk to some of your partners at the G20, I'm just giving just an advice. Maybe we could get the White House ballroom ready in time for the G20 summit. But that's just an aside. Now, let me just, we are really running out of time. I'm going to ask you just one question each, last round. And it's, it's not my fault. It's New York traffic that we all started late. but look, only one question each. And I want to focus on technology because that's something that we are really focusing on. Mexico has a unique challenge, opportunity, as well as a policy proposition where it needs to now marry the age of AI to its manufacturing prowess, create a value chain in this digital age, which continues to have Mexico at its core center and an important part. India, of course, has to continue its journey of lifting billions and millions, and a report suggests that 80% of all AI gains will go to the OECD countries and China, and literally everyone else will be sharing the rest of the divides if we don't take bold actions now. So there's a technology opportunity, but there is also clearly a leadership question here on how can we create a DPI equivalent of the AI world. Leslie, I'm going to turn to you finally on how do American big tech companies see the global south, or are they happy with the American market? I think Secretary Krishnan said this morning that India could easily become the world's largest use case of AI. So while you could have the development of AI in different parts of the world, we could be the largest consumers of AI, and we could actually use it for different sectors. And of course, Mr. Suleiman, I'm going to ask you, connectivity, trade, logistics, and connecting the world in the age of AI. How do we see this? This is one last question to all of you, a technology perspective, but please take this opportunity also to respond to anything else you have heard on the panel. I saw you noting down a few points there, so please do come to that. But let me start with you, sir.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I think Mexico is a very lucky country these days, because, but I want to tell you why. Because we have a fantastic woman scientist leading our country. And to be a woman and to be a scientist has made a big difference. So I want to share a little bit of, because it leads me to technology. Of course, immediately, some of the priorities were very much technologically oriented by a scientist leading the country. So immediately we have launched in 1 year a national artificial intelligence laboratory, a national semiconductor design center, a digital transformation telecommunication agency, which, by the way, all these developments are part of our renewed partnership with India, and that is going to create a new way to link South-to-South collaboration. So, it's in North America, it will not only be Silicon Valley. This is what I'm saying. We are ready to compete technologically. We have the human resources, but overall, we have the political will and the conviction and the determination that we need to move forward on that direction under strong leadership that has a popular support, international trust, as well respected, and we're open and willing to make our own plans, of course, considering the all complexities that Mr. Jaishankar has been telling us about, and not predictable. But yes, I think if countries create their own plans based on their own analysis of what is going on, and we're able to come up with the right answers. And again, let me just, the conception of international cooperation for development needs to be, again, brought to the center of the South-to-South and North-South collaboration. So I think we're ready to meet the challenges, and hopefully we'll partner with all of you.
Minister, but I can confirm to you, Mexico is not a low-key country. Dr. Jaishankar.
Samir, I would say, look, let me pick up. What do you do in this very turbulent atmosphere? I think particularly for large countries, it is important to build capacities, to be more self-reliant. That is very much the focus today in India. And because you said you look at it from a perspective of technology, I think in many ways Mr. Krishnan speaking before us gave some of the answers. And what, we speak of multipolarity as though it's something that will happen. You have to build multipolarity. And you build multipolarity by building national capacities. And when you build national capacities and have national experiences, some of it is transposable to other people who may relate to it. So, for example, if you take DPI, digital public infrastructure, there are many other societies who find the Indian model of DPI, frankly, far more absorbable and relevant and transposable than a European model or a American model of how to run a more digital life. Now, it can be big things, it can be little things. What we have seen, because you spoke again earlier about South-South cooperation, many things we've done in India. If you have something like a drinking water mission, or you have taking electricity to every home, each one of these efforts actually has scaled up capacities in India, has created businesses and companies and people in India who can take those capabilities abroad and today actually drive South-South cooperation. So you have a country like India still at $3,000 per capita income, which actually has assistance programs in almost 80 countries in the world. And in some cases, these are billion-dollar programs where, what we have done in India, we have taken out of India to some other country. So to me, technology, self-reliance, multipolarity, South-South cooperation, they're part of one basket, and that is part of the response to what is happening, the point number one. Point number two, which we haven't spoken about today, this world which we are talking about will require a global workforce. Where that global workforce is to be housed and located may be a matter of a political debate. But there's no getting away. If you look at demand and you look at demographics, demands cannot be met in many countries purely out of national demographics. This is a reality. You cannot run away from this reality. So how do we create a more acceptable, contemporary, efficient model of a global workforce which is then located in a distributed global workplace? I think this is a very big question today, which the international economy has to address. The third point, and I would like to pick up on your optimism here, if you actually look at it, for all the imponderables, the uncertainties, eventually trade does find a way. And the fact is, it is easier to trade today. It is easier for physical reasons. There are better roads, better shipping, etc. It's easier for digital reasons. There are much smoother trade interfaces than there have ever been in human existence. So for all the obstacles and complications that may arise, I also think they will be countered in some ways or mitigated in some ways by what will happen, I think, in the trade domain. And finally, I agree with him. I think we will see, as part of this re-engineered world, I think we will see new, more different trade arrangements between countries, which will make decisions which they may not have made in other circumstances, countries which today will feel the desire, sometimes even the compulsion, to have new partners and new regions will look very much more. And certainly I can tell you where India is concerned, in many other regions, and that's one of the points we were discussing today, Latin America, Caribbean, where we actually do roughly about $45 billion of trade every year. But I can see with much greater effort, even what may be considered very distant regions today becoming much more relevant. So we are going to, technology-wise, trade-wise, connectivity-wise, workplace-wise, end up in a very different world in a very short time.